Is it turned on? Okay, can I start?
Yeah.
It was turned on all that time?
No.
Good. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Sri Vyasadeva, the author. Shingatam Swakata Krishna,
Shingatam Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtanaha,
Punya Shravana Kirtanaha,
Ridyantasto Hibadrani,
Ridyantasto Hibadrani,
Vedunoti Suritsatam,
Vedunoti Suritsatam.
Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma Supersoul of human's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly enchanted. Nashtar Praeshu Bhadreshu
Namaskar Praeshu Bhadresu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagava Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttamashloke
Bhagavati Shloke
Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtaki
Bhaktir Bhavananaishtaki
by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee. All that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Gaia, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So you decided not to turn on the fan, or it doesn't work, or what?
What you talking about, the heater?
The
exhaust.
Fan, because it's all smoky. I thought you were going to turn it on.
I could do that.
Where did the smoke come from?
I think they burned some high quality frankincense.
Oh, yeah, my Ronnie did that.
Oh, it's frankincense. Oh,
Yeah.
it's not from the stove.
Not near the stove, no, it's frankincense.
Oh, okay.
If you turn the fan on, it's gonna be a little bit chilly.
That's true too. Okay. Well, that's right then. Let's see. We are on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Purusha Shukta confirmed, around 29. Which is right here. Okay. Tatas.
Tatas
Te.
Te
Bratara.
Bratara
Ime.
Ime
Tatas te bratara ime.
Tastaste Bratara Ime
Prajanam.
Prajanam
Patayo.
Pratayo
Nava.
Nava
Prajanam Patayo Nava.
Prajanam Pratayo Nam
Ayajan.
Ayajan
Yaktam.
Yatam
Avyaktam.
Ayatam
Ayajan Vyaktam. Avyaktam.
Ayajan Yatam Yatam
Purusham.
Purusham Su
Samahitaha.
Samadhiha
Purusham su samahitaha.
Purusham Samadhiha
Tataste bratara ime. Prajana. That's not accurate. Prajanam Patayo Nava.
Prajanam Pratayo Nava
Ayajan Vyaktam Avyaktam.
Ayajan Yaktam Yaktam
Purusham su samahitaha.
Purusham Susamahita
Tataste bratara ime.
Yataste Rattarame
Prajanam Pataya Nava.
Prajanam Patayo
Sorry. Ayajan Vyaktam Avyaktam.
Ayajan Yaktam Yaktam
Purusham su samahitaha.
Purusham Susamahita
Tataste bratara ime.
Yataste Rattarame
Prajanam Patayo Nava.
Prajanam Patayo Nava
Ayajan Vyaktam Avyaktam.
Ayajan Yaktam Yaktam
Purusham su samahitaha.
Purusham Samanita
Let's chant.
Tataste prataraime.
Tataste Bhattara Ime
Prajanam Patayo Nava.
Prajanam Patayo Nava
Ayagyam Vyaktam Avyaktam.
Ayajan Yaktam
Purusham Susamahita.
Purusham Susamahita Tataste Bharatar Ime
Tataste prataraime.
Prajanam Patayo Neva
Prajanam Patayo Nava.
Ayajan Yaktam Ayaktam
Ayagyam Vyaktam Avyaktam.
Purusham Susamahitaha
Purusham Susamahitaha.
Tataste Bharatara ime.
Tasaste Bharatara Ime
Rajanam Patkayo Nava.
Prajanam Patayo Neva
Ayagyan Vyaktam Avakyam.
Ayajan Yaktam Yaktam
Purusham Shu Shamahitaha.
Purusham Susamahitaha
What else? Okay. Word
Tata.
Thereafter.
Thereafter.
Te.
Your.
Brataraha.
Brataraha.
Brothers. Ime.
These.
Projanam.
Prajanam.
I'm sorry. Prajanam.
Prajanam.
Of the living creatures.
Of the living creatures.
Patayaha.
Patayaha.
Masters. Nava. 9. Ayajan. Performed. Vyaktam. Manifested. Avyaktam. Non-manifested. Purusham. Personalities. Susamahitaha. With proper rituals. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
My dear son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Please repeat. My dear son.
My dear son.
Thereafter your 9 brothers.
Thereafter your 9 brothers.
Who are the masters of living creatures. Perform the sacrifice. With proper rituals. To satisfy both the manifested. And non-manifested personalities. Purport. The manifested personalities are the demigods, like the ruler of the heavenly kingdom Indra and his associates. And the non-manifested personality is the Lord himself. The manifested personalities are mundane controllers of the material affairs, whereas the non-manifested personality of Godhead is transcendental, beyond the range of the material atmosphere. In this age of Kali, the manifested demigods are also not to be seen, for space travel has completely stopped. So both the powerful demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are non-manifested to the covered eyes of the modern man. Modern men want to see everything with their eyes, although they are not sufficiently qualified. Consequently, they disbelieve in the existence of the demigods or of the Supreme God. They should see through the pages of authentic scriptures and should not simply believe their unqualified eyes. Even in these days, God can also be seen by qualified eyes tinged with the ointment of love of God. Born in the darkness of ignorance and spiritual master, open my eyes towards the Lord. Offer my respectful obeisances. So this the setting here, this chapter is called Purusha Shukta Confirmed. I finally am starting to understand what that might mean. That Purusha Shukta is a section of one of the Vedas, and it's glorifying the Purusha, who is the like Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu in creation, the Purusha avatars. And so this is called Purusha Shukta, and I believe I understand it tells about how this Vishnu is all pervading. And this is the universal form, because it's like his body, the material energy. That understanding of what Purusha Shukta is, Purusha Shukta is a prayer the demigods chanted when they went to the Milk Ocean to try to ask what to do about the demons on the earth when Bhumi went up there as a cow and asked for help. So this Purusha Shukta, if that's what it is, then this verse, this chapter confirms it. The chapter before described the universal form. This chapter shows how it was practically true for Lord Brahma. He was born on the lotus flower, and there's nothing but him and the lotus flower and the Lord. That's all there was. And Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and the lotus flower and Lord Brahma. And so he was in this dark universe, and he had to perform his austerities to understand what to do. So then he had to begin sacrifices. But he didn't, after he performed his tapasya and he started to see what to do, he had to perform sacrifices, but he had nothing for ingredients, nothing to use for the rituals and the sacrifices. So he had to make the ingredients out of the limbs of the Lord. And as Prabhupada said, like the lotus flower is like one of the limbs of the Lord. And so he had nothing to make the ingredients to offer the Lord except the Lord himself. And so he created the universe, and he created all these ingredients, and so he was able to offer sacrifice. So he knows that he created them from the Lord. And so he knows that this universal form, he knows the Garudakashaya Vishnu, and he knows the universal form. And he knows how he created what we can see, so he would have the ingredients for the sacrifices. So perhaps that's why this chapter is called Purushashuta Confirmed. And that's the setting of this anyways. So he just got done explaining all that. So now he's explaining how, the sacrifices are going on now. And these 9 brothers, my son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifices with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Brahma speaking to Narada, who had begun by asking him, okay, I see you meditating. I think you're the creator, you're the source of everything, you're the topmost, and yet I see you meditating. So who are you meditating on? Who's really the top? So this is when Lord Brahma was answering him and explaining about the Lord. And so the 9 brothers are 9 sages. The first one is Marichi, one of them is Angira, the other names I can't remember, and it's not relevant to name them here, but they also were present in the vision that Akrura had when he was taking Krishna Balaram to Mathura. He came to get them. He was sent by Kamsa, and he was taking them back to Mathura. And he stopped, and they took turns. Krishna and Balaram went first, and then they sat back in the chariot. And then Akrura went and bathed in the Jamuna, and he saw this vision in the Jamuna of Mahavishnu, and everybody was worshiping, and included Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, 4 Kumaras, Nanda and Sunanda, demigods, and also included these 9 sages, and others were mentioned. So these 9 sages, at first I thought they were the Nava-yogendras, which are another group of 9 sages, but Prabhupada said, no, headed by Marichi, and these are the sons of Lord Brahma. The 9 yogendras are the sons of Lord Vrishabhadev. And he had 100 sons, and 9 of them became sages like that. And so, but these 9 brothers are headed by Marichi, and Angira is among them, and others.
Pulasti?
Well, yes, not Kasyapa. But they married, these 9 sages married the 9 daughters of Kasyapa Muni, Kardama Muni. Kasyapa Muni had a different situation going on. Okay, so another story. But so that's who these 9 brothers were, and Narada Muni is like the 10th son. He was like group different because Narada Muni was sort of special. He was pure devotee, and the others were devotees, but not exactly like Narada. So they were a little different. So these sages, they used to walk the earth. And the demigods used to come for sacrifices, and when Krishna was on the earth, they came too. They were involved, and the sages were involved. And I don't know, but I think that the sages are really like native to higher planets, and I don't think they're exactly like Homo sapiens. I think they are higher. I mean, they're humans, but there are other kinds of humans, and they're higher and purer. For example, when Kunti came down from the mountains with her sons, it was time for them to join the city and get trained up and all that stuff. So the sages walked with her. All the sages walked with her, and people came out to see all the sages, because they usually don't get to see sages, even though they lived up in the mountains, not that far away, walking distance somehow, a few days maybe, but they didn't really see sages. So it must have been a sight to behold, not just some people with long hair, like you go to Vrindavan and you see them with the hair and beards and the loincloth and like that, but it must have been something special about them. Perhaps they were an aura, maybe they glowed, maybe they walked just above the earth or extra tall or something. It must have been something really special that the people like to see. They aren't really just like us. They have more power, and they can do more things. They have mystic powers, a lot more than humans have or could get. So, anyways, these are, and the demigods also were involved. So I'm going to talk, the second part of the purport is about seeing Krishna with the love, even though Krishna is not manifested. That's what I'll get to, but I'm just going to talk about this for a little bit. These are the manifested personalities. And so in previous ages, the demigods came too. And there's some sacrifices, I think it was Yudhishthir's sacrifice or someone said it was said that some people saw that the demigods personally came. So, or maybe that was King Dasara. I don't know, but some famous huge sacrifice. And the demigods visibly came because they were so pleased. So people used to get to see them. Also, Krishna Maharaj ran into two of them, disguised as cows, and he identified them. He figured out who they were. He figured out they weren't ordinary. They weren't ordinary. For one thing, the bull at least was pure white. That must be very, very beautiful. Not only that, but the bull was hobbling around with 3 legs cut off and he could talk. So that's a clue right there. He's different from an ordinary bull. So he talked. And so Maharaj Parikshit figured out that he was actually Dharma by the things he said. And of course the cow was Bhumi. So they were walking the earth disguised. Bhumi also disguised herself as a cow to go visit Lord Brahma and ask for help. So they are higher beings. They can we call them shapeshifters, but we're usually talking about lower beings when when people commonly talk about shapeshifting. There's New Agey ideas of shapeshifting that go on. But they were shapeshifters in a high way. And so these are beings that are manifested, but not necessarily on our level. They're on a different level, sometimes visible, sometimes not, and now there's no space travel. So they don't come here. And so modern men don't believe they're real. Of course, some people worship them and don't believe that there's those who worship the demigods and don't believe that God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is real. So they worship, because they can see the material world, and they say, well, there's something higher than that in charge of the material world. So they heard about the demigods, they worship the demigods. So there's that kind of mentality, and then there's those who worship only God and don't believe there are demigods, but they don't know anything about Krishna, so they don't really know anything. But the pure devotees can see Krishna, so that's the part that I also want to talk about. Let's see. Oh no! First I'll read this in chapter 3, text 10. Something about the demigods. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." So it's not, the material world is a horrible place, but it isn't really like Vishnu wants it to be. It's just that all these accumulated karmas and desires under the influence of the modes of nature just pull us down, and some beings get so low, so much karma accumulated, so many low kinds of desires, they end up in grotesque bodies like insects or something, because they're just so low. They've fallen so low with them. But they're still beautiful spirit souls, but just the karma and the desires that they accumulate. So it's all available, but actually Vishnu would like us to all be with him, where there's none of this bad things in the material world. But if we're going to be in the material world, he gives us a way to make it really nice, so that we can easily come back to him. So this way is there. So sacrifices are given. Of course, Lord Brahma is there's more detail in the story of how Lord Brahma developed. This is the summary. It all comes from the Lord anyways. So the sacrifices, everything comes. So by this sacrifice, you're supposed to have, if you're still in the material world because you have some desire to have material responsibility, but even though you're a very advanced devotee, you get a high position like that, but you still have material responsibilities as well. So they do sacrifices to Vishnu for material benefit and for liberation and for eventually loving Krishna, bring back to Godhead. So now I'm going to go to get to the serious part. Okay, so we have here, it says, modern men want to see everything with their eyes, so they're not sufficiently qualified. They should see through the pages of authentic scriptures and should not simply believe their unqualified eyes. Even in these days, God can also be seen by qualified eyes tinged with the ointment of love of God. There's Prabhupada wrote this, and Prabhupada knows what he's talking about, because by experience he can see Krishna. He can see him everywhere. And so he's talking factual matters. He's not talking theoretically or ideally or giving a hope or something. Like we might say, it's possible to see God in this light, because we heard it's possible. We don't know by personal experience yet. As I know, I don't know anybody else, but I know that Prabhupada saw Krishna all the time. So anyway, here's text 10 of chapter 4. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. And let's see. So how do we get this transcendental love? Okay, the trick is you can see Krishna if you love him, but you can't love if you can't see him. We can't love what we can't see, but you can see Krishna if you love him. Kind of an impossible situation, but this is the back door, you might say, or the front door, the main door, whatever. But if this dilemma has a way, we can work, and by transcendental knowledge of Krishna and attain love for him. So how does it work? Examine how it works. 434. So, first of all, this instruction. Just try, we're talking about getting knowledge of Krishna, right? So Krishna tells Arjuna how. He says, just try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So this is how you get knowledge. You go to someone who has seen it. Then what? Okay, text 35 explains a little bit more. Perhaps it explains how they have seen it originally. And anyway, it tells how you can see. It says, having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion, for by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. So how do we see? By hearing. This is it. We see through the ears in the beginning. We can't see through our eyes. Our eyes are craving. Our eyes are always looking for the most beautiful thing. So anything beautiful we see, a beautiful person, a beautiful flower, a beautiful sky, beautiful scenery, anything beautiful we see, our eyes look at it, we hunger for it. But you can't keep it because life changes, where you can't keep it, but that's the trouble with material seeing. But anyway, the eyes hunger, but these material eyes can't see Krishna until we have transcendental love for him, which we don't yet. So how do we get there? Because by hearing, we hear and see through our ears. And reading Prabhupada's books, we also see Krishna in a sense through our ears, because the written word is a code for the spoken word. And it gets spoken and then it gets transformed into this code that we all go to school and learn how to read, right? We can read this code and it turns back into sound inside our head. When we read it, it becomes sound, it becomes hearing again. Especially, we get good at it after so many years of practice, and then it immediately, automatically becomes sound inside our head. So it's hearing. So by hearing, we'll see. So already by hearing, we read Prabhupada's books and we read the descriptions of Krishna. Already we can somewhat see him in our mind's eye. Not like we're seeing him like he's manifested before us, but we're seeing him in an increasing ability to see him in our mind's eye according to the particular descriptions. We know what color he is, how his hair curls on his face, he's got lotus eyes, and we know things like that, smiling face, we know his handsome shape, we know what he wears. So we know these things about him, what he does, and it goes in, and it's not like material learning where you go to college and you memorize a bunch of things and you practice up knowing it, and it's externally applied knowledge that you train yourself to get used to and you get better. Like the act of reading, it's external. It's not an eternal thing. It's external, but it's a skill. But knowledge of Krishna is awakening knowledge. It's naturally existing knowledge in the soul. It's covered, and it becomes uncovered gradually. That's how it works so well. When you read, even when I was new, and I heard you're supposed to read the Bhagavatam, so somebody lent me copies, and I would read one book at a time and bring it back and get the next one. Nobody else would trust me with their books, but one person did. So I was reading and I would fall asleep and I would struggle at the point, especially the third canto, and oh my gosh, it was so hard. And, but I don't remember reading even the first two cantos. I don't remember doing it. I just remember struggling with the third canto, but I was reading consecutively. And I didn't think I was really absorbing it. I just plowed through it to say, so that I did it. And, years later, I kind of grow my understanding, and then years later, I was rereading some parts and I said, that's where I learned that. So it did go in. It did. It was because it was already there and it got uncovered. It's so natural to, when somebody new comes, we start telling them things as long as they're open and accepting it, and they've given up their meat eating and bad habits, and they take some prasadam, and you explain things to them, it becomes part of them like almost immediately. How is it? It just happens so fast. And immediately in a few days you can preach to somebody. And maybe you're preaching maybe kind of at the beginning level, but you can do it. You can tell them the basics. You can tell them who Krishna is, what soul is, and all that. It becomes natural to you. You feel like talking about it because it's an uncovered natural knowledge. So learning about Krishna consciousness is a little different from learning material things. It's different in that way. And in other words, by this knowledge you will see. So you begin to see it wakes up. And so what's the next thing I want to read? 6:30. In 6:29 and 30, the meditator says, Krishna says, thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all, that's the one before, I'll read it anyways, free from all material contamination, and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Okay, 29. A true yogi observes me in all beings, and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. Text 30. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So this is seeing with the eyes of love. So the love gradually is natural to the soul, and it awakens along with the knowledge and along with the practice of devotional service. And when someone gets really purified like that, you can see Krishna everywhere. So there's this Bhagavatam verse quoted in the purport. Premanjana charita bhakti virocha mena santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundara machintya guna swarupam govinda mariti rusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee, whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Shamasundar, situated within the heart of the devotee. Shamasundar is a threefold bending form of the original Krishna holding his flute, as the gopis see him. So a pure devotee sees him in the heart, but he sees beyond, he sees the origin of the supersoul. Because of his love, Krishna becomes there, not just supersoul. Supersoul is an expansion of Krishna to go with the unsurrendered souls, who, at least like Krishna's still with them, but he's not exposing his own self. But if you have pure love, then Krishna exposes his own self and he becomes present in your heart. And he's actually, it won't be until you really love him, because he's very soft and tender. He's very sensitive. And he's not going to expose himself. He protects himself by the means of his Maya, who is your personality in her own right, and her service is to protect him, but it's Krishna's Maya. Protects himself from insensitive clods who would hurt him. So just like the gopis are so worried about him, because he manifests his own original self in Vrindavan for the gopis because of their pure love. And so he goes walking in the forest with his bare feet, and the gopis worry all day about his feet getting hurt because he's so soft. He's so soft. And so he's like that. His feelings are like that too. His feelings are so soft. So he won't reveal himself. He reveals himself, he goes as a super soul, but even that you can't see until you have some awakening of love, like you're a yogi and you're really meditating and stuff. And you can see that, but still it's not Krishna, the original soft, personal, sensitive Krishna. And even for those who are not at that level, he offers the image of an old man with a beard. And so there's that painting that people think this is God. This old man, he's this like really like fierce looking. He's got all this hair, his huge beard. He wears this plain robe. He's got big muscles, and he's scowling. He's looking angry. And so, if you mistreat him, it misses by a mile. It doesn't hurt Krishna. And so he offers these like false images for those who don't love him. But with love, as your love awakens, and it's natural to the soul. We learn about Krishna. It uncovers this knowledge. And so we develop our love for him. And so what comes after? There's more in how it works in 10. Let's see, the nutshell verses of the Bhagavad-gita. It summarizes this. I'm the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. This is 10.8. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. How can you worship with your whole heart if there isn't some love and you have this knowledge and it's awakened and it's natural to you? Text 9. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So that's what we have Bhagavatam class for. 10. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And here's how he does it. 11. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. That's a process by which all these individual tidbits of knowledge that we read one paragraph at a time in the books get joined together and become whole. And by the shining lamp of knowledge, it all becomes realized knowledge. Because of the super soul, it shines the light so that we see the wholeness of it, gradually as we practice our devotion. So then, just one more thing. End of last few verses of chapter 11. Cohorts are really long. So 55, 54, 53. Okay, Krishna says, after he's shown in this terrifying universal form, which is named death, because it's named time, and it's death. And it's pervading the universe. So he showed Arjuna the terrifying, because Arjuna had to go to war, so he showed Arjuna that it was already happening, so it wasn't going to be Arjuna's fault. So anyway, then it was terrifying to Arjuna, so Arjuna needed to see the personal Krishna again. So he saw the form Vishnu, and then Krishna showed himself. And he says, the form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes. This is interesting. He's seeing the two-armed Krishna again, as he did before. But he still got his transcendental eyes. So I would say that means he saw Krishna the way the gopis saw him. Not necessarily dressed that way, but that kind of purity, that he saw his full spiritual vision. Because Krishna was also visible to Duryodhana, who did not become a devotee by seeing him. And so when he left, when Krishna departed this world, he left behind a body for the atheists. He got shot in the foot and left behind a body for the atheists. It says that somewhere. Because the atheists wanted to believe, that that's all they saw. So it was a covering, kind of like a covering. Krishna contains, when he comes, he contains everything. All his material and spiritual energies, expansions, everything is contained in the original Krishna. And so that includes the material energy. So he just left it behind in an external body. And it's not like he was leaving behind a body that was different from himself, because it all is him. But that was what he did for the atheists to satisfy them, because otherwise, how could they stay atheists? They want to, So he left it behind for them. So that was what Duryodhana saw. Everybody saw Krishna walking around. This prince who's kind of bluish colored, dark colored, but kind of unusually beautiful. But they didn't really see him spiritually, except some. If they were devotees, they saw him spiritually, but they didn't see him. They didn't see him the way the gopis saw him. Same way, because here's the difference. The form you're seeing with your transcendental eyes, he gave Arjuna transcendental eyes. Before that he didn't. So now Arjuna is seeing his real spiritual form. It cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas. nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It's not by these means that one can see me as I am. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. One more. My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities of mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. Just clicked in my head, that's the same thing. It's the same highest instruction that Jesus gave. That if you love the Lord your God with your whole heart, your whole soul, your whole mind, your whole strength, and your neighbor as yourself. So this is practically just another, it's the same thing. It's the same wherever you go. It's the same thing. This is what you got to do. You've got to love God. And if you love him like this, if you have knowledge of Krishna, if you don't have knowledge of Krishna, you still can't love him like this. But if you have knowledge of Krishna and what he looks like, and your devotion becomes pure and undivided like that, he will reveal himself to you, his spiritual self, because he will trust you. Otherwise, we might mistreat him because he's so giving of himself. That makes him very soft, and he doesn't want to be hurt by idiots, who are going to be rough on him, So he's very careful who he reveals himself to. So anyways, in these days, he revealed himself to Prabhupada, who trusted Prabhupada. Of course, in these days, God can also be seen by qualified eyes tinged with the ointment of love of God. So, Sakir, any comments or questions? Yes.
It's interesting, in the different and comparative religions, some of the paths focus on building up, like stirring up and building up this love for God. But in Krishna consciousness, it seems like we already have love for God.
Yeah.
It's just covered. So we need to scrub down till we get the...
down equals up.
Down equals up. It's like, and you have to watch for this. Like in Krishna consciousness, when you get a question, is it this or is it that? And many times it's both. And the philosophy is like incredibly complicated, but simple. It's simple, and it actually makes it simple. So that's where the scrub down, the Maha Mantra scrubs down all this stuff we get diluted. I guess the word is diluted. And there's that verse 3:6, where one who restrains the senses, like it push them down, our minds can still dwell on these sense objects, then we delude ourselves. So we have to scrub down with the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama. Rubber did it.
I was just an observation. I mean, it's certainly not absolute, but it's just my subjective observation that a lot of the Hindu people that I know, a good portion of them, they understand that they're the supreme God, that they may be worshipping the devas, and not necessarily as the supreme God, but because it's part of the Karmakanda section of the Vedas that you worship a particular deva for a particular need. And so out of maybe a need for health, or a need for a spouse, or a need for this, or a need for that, they worship a particular deva to fulfill that desire, because that is the system given in the Karmakanda section of the Vedas. Now, there's certainly a lot of confusion amongst most Hindu people concerning the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of God. Most equate Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu, whereas, we understand there's a difference there. but a large percentage of them equate Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And that could be also due to a lot of Western influence, because they pull from Christianity that term of the trilogy. This is the Hindu trilogy.
Trinity.
The Trinity, yeah, not Trinity, yeah. The Trinity of the destroyer and the creator and the maintainer. But in actuality, Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of God, and Shiva is a very unique expansion for the destruction, but qualitatively or quantitatively not exactly the same as Vishnu, and of course Brahma even less, being a Jivatma who has assumed the post, although when there's not Prabhupada mentions, when there's not a qualified Jiva in a particular universe, Vishnu himself may assume that post and play that role. But just an observation. Whereas, you mentioned in Christianity as well as in Islam and Judaism, and you have they worship only the monotheistic supreme God, but have little information, and you have the Michelangelo drawing that picture of the old man that some Christians equate it to, and Muslims would never equate the work of art.
No.
That would be idolatry to be doing something like that, and so they would never think in those terms. And then you have, of course, the Buddhists who get beyond just worshiping their ancestors and celestial beings, and Buddha is a celestial being who don't have any faith in absolute being, nor either in themselves as an individual soul, and actually profess this sort of modern science actually equates a lot with Buddhism when it comes to everything coming out of the void, coming out of nothing, coming out of the big black hole.
Yeah, they like that.
Yeah. But that's only generally amongst those Buddhist meditators and those who are they're big masters of meditators, not amongst the common people who all practically wanting to go to the heavenly plane.
But most of us are mixed in. This, it keeps being said again and again and again. You say, well, I don't have any karma yoga in me, I don't have any jnana yoga, but we don't know how deep the roots are. We have to keep purifying that. We have this desire or that desire that we discover, I did want this thing. But as far as the Muslims having no image at all of God, actually it's almost impossible. There's just something in their mind, in their subconscious, whether they picture a great light or void or some kind of human form. I saw something Bhaktisiddhanta someone wrote that the only ones who are not idolaters are the Vaishnavas. Because everybody else has some image, whether they picture a void or a light or an old man or whatever they picture, even inadvertently, because you almost can't say God without having an image that goes with it of some sort. That's made up, unless you have Krishna, according to the scriptures. So we're the only ones, we've got the deities here and they call us idolaters, we're the only ones who are not.
Well, have to talk to some Muslims, or maybe people who are more familiar with Muslims, they may know that they're so habituated to that idea that any sort of thought of a form of God is, a heresy.
No, but then they have a thought of a formless God.
Right.
So that's an image also.
But what kind of image came from? Very difficult.
Space, I don't know.
Part of that,
Kind of wanting, but...
in my studies on Islam, the problem came when Muhammad, as they say, peace be upon him.
What did he say? When he's such a good Muslim, he always says peace be upon him.
Peace be upon when Muhammad...
How do they say that? What do they say, Marani? You know that term. What is that? How do they say that?
What?
Peace be upon you.
No, they would say peace be upon. Whenever they mention Muhammad's name, they say peace be upon him. But the problem was, Assalamu alaikum. But the problem was that when Muhammad came into Mecca, where the Kaaba was, that the main center of worship, it was full with people who brought once a year, people would bring their own personal deities, and they were chunks of rock and crystals and stones and man-made type stuff. And Muhammad said, this is not right, and he cleared it out and just threw all the junk out the back door.
But they keep that one thing that always got to touch.
The Kaaba. And that possibly a meteorite.
Yeah,
The big Shiva Lingam.
Yeah, Shiva Lingam, this.
Yeah, I've heard that. They got
But that's how he united them. No, there's no image of God. Including him.
That's
It's
the
against
theology
yeah.
that he united them around, but he
Right.
united them through politically conquering all of them.
When they went to Medina.
Military.
History, yeah. And it was two different parts of the Quran, even the peaceful part of Mecca and the war part of Medina. And he got a couple of hundred people in Mecca, but he got thousands of people through the war to be in warrior-like.
Thus proving again that war is more productive.
War is more productive.
Well, we should
So anyway,
we should hold all these leaders in the world accountable. You know, stop this crazy war until you can feed everybody in the world. It's ridiculous that they war while so many people starve.
yeah.
And they cut
It's
off
demonic.
We should actually get behind Tulsi Gabbard's campaign, you know, to stop this ridiculous warring, you know, amongst all these so-called countries while people starve in the world. You know, it's ridiculous.
If we can get, and it's amazing that there seems to be some movement in this direction. If we could get everybody to give up meat, there seems to be more and more movement in this direction. The darndest people are saying, I think I should become a vegan.
From the most unique places,
The more
yeah.
people they can feed.
Huh?
The more meat they give up, the more people they can feed.
Not only that, but the more karma they lessen. The more meat you give up, the less karma that, and it's more and more possible to have peace. It's closer to being possible.
And then they follow the peace formula, the full peace formula. That's just part of it.
The full peace formula.
Prabhupada's peace formula.
Yeah, yeah. And they learn the whole thing. That Krishna is the supreme proprietor, the supreme enjoyer, the supreme friend.
But a person in the mode of ignorance does not know what to do and what not to do. Or was that passion?
Well, that's obviously.
That's ignorance.
Yeah.
And so demonic people do wars. They think it's profit in it.
It's possible to, if everybody would give up all these bad karma generating activities, then it becomes possible to elevate them with knowledge. It's very hard to give knowledge, transcendental knowledge, to somebody who keeps covering it up by eating meat. And you have to cover it up. You can't acknowledge that animals feel any pain or anything like that. You just cover it up and you eat your meat, and then you can't give somebody transcendental knowledge who's like that. It's really, really hard.
There was a group that came up. Can I raise it?
Is anybody else want to speak?
There was
The
a
point about Mecca being having Shiva Lingam in the Kabbalah is because previously that was the moon temple. It was the temple that the relatives of Muhammad were the Pujaris. They were the Mahants.
And they made Shiva Lingams, didn't they?
So they, it's one of the
Still
seven, or how many tirthas? There's many tirthas of Shiva, where in Bhagavatam it says that after he chased Mohini Murti, Lord Shiva passed semen, and the semen fell in 7 places, or maybe it's 11. I think it's 7, but it might be more than that. But one of them was Mecca. So there, the moon, the deity, at that time, then the establishment of the Chandra was established there. And Bhubaneswar, Kanyakumari, Somnath, Bhadranath, these are the other tirthas where Lord Shiva's semen fell. So then, for thousands and thousands of years, the moon god was worshipped there. So the outside, what they say is a meteorite, is a large shell around Shiva. And the inside
it's in silver.
is a Shiva lingam.
Oh.
Because they even have the dish at the bottom of the lingam, the yoni. You can see it. There's pictures from inside the Kabbalah, which they have actually photographed, and you can actually see them. And I had seen them online before. And they photograph it from the front of the Kabbalah as they circumambulate like this. And the Shiva Lingam is on this side. So they photograph using drones over Mecca during the Hajj, so that those drones can photograph on all directions, and you can get the actual size and everything from that. So that's how they, and the Muslims know that those things are there, but they do not call them Shiva Lingam.
It is, because it was a moon temple, is that why they still use that crescent moon in all their symbols?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's
there's
always
some
has
evidence
to
against that.
Yeah.
because it's within Shiva's hair.
But that's why they, I mean, what do they say why they use that crescent, you know?
I think it'd be all speculation.
It'd just be speculation.
This
They
goes to
have
show
this
that
big thing
behind,
in India,
behind everything, there's Krishna or the demigods.
the Taj Mahal is a Shiva temple.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
this rumor has been in India for, when I was in India in in the early 70s, that book was popular all over the place.
Did Sri Nandana do some?
And recently he just came out.
Because
at
the Pajari apartments are in the back.
yeah. He just came out with all this evidence at the what is it? It was in Pune, I think. It's at this big Rama temple where they go and they discuss Indology all over the world. And he was just there.
Sri Nanda has this book, maybe you've seen it, Proof of Vedic Culture's Global Existence, and it
Yes.
discusses all these things. Also, the Vatican apparently has some Shiva stuff hidden away, and so if you dig deep enough and go back far enough, you'll find demigod worship and Vishnu worship behind it.
Well, that's what they call, what's the famous word that they use?
Not interfaith.
No, what do they call people who, previous to Christianity?
Heathens.
Well, heathens, but there's another word they use. It's
Pagans?
Pagan. It's
Pagan.
worship.
It's pagan
The
worship.
pagan
Yeah,
worship
moon
is demigod
and-
worship. So it all goes back to either you're worshiping the
Yeah,
demigods or you're
because that's
worshiping
God's
Vishnu.
energy.
It
So
always
The
comes
Druids,
back.
the people in Vikings and the Druids in England. In England they have these, they have Stonehenge. So everyone's
Right.
worshiping some types of stones. They went there and did their at the winter and summer solstice. They're going to have they will have their big meeting. It will be this soon in England.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
It's a very nice class. Thank you very much. So you made a mention about Lord Krishna leaving his body.
It's in there somewhere, there's a sense it's in there somewhere in Prabhupada's
As
books.
per the Bhagavatam, from my understanding, is that
It's, I'm sorry, what?
Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's purports. So the hunter Jara, he shoots an arrow, and then he mistakes the Lord told to be an eye of a deer, and then he shoots an arrow, comes, and then he apologizes, and then he says that it's all part of my plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then Daruka comes, and he ascends to Daruka's chariot, and he goes up. That is what is there in Srimad Bhagavatam.
There's
Those
someplace
places
else.
are still
Someplace
existing.
else it tells that there was a body left for the demons. In the Bhagavatam, someplace else.
I don't think it's in a verse. I think it's in one of Prabhupada's purports. It
Something.
mentions something like
He
Yeah.
left the material body.
For the atheist, he left
Left
somebody.
and apparently
The context, I
material
think,
body.
what I think is, what Prabhupada mentions is that he got hit by an arrow. It appeared as if he died because of being hit by an arrow.
Yeah.
So that atheists can say, oh, he also died,
Yes.
just like anybody else.
Yes, it was only appearance.
It's not about leaving a body. I'm doubtful about that.
No, it says somewhere else that he did. In the Bhagavatam also, Prabhupada said. It doesn't say it in that story. But it says somewhere that, but it, it's all his material energy, he can do what he wants with it. So if he wants to leave behind a material form of himself, he can do that.
It's good if we can find the source.
I don't know, do you know where it is?
Just go back and look at that particular chapter where he shot.
I don't think it's in that chapter, I think it's somewhere else.
Well, that's where I first look. I would look there.
I wonder what word would be key to look at it.
Krishna leaving his body. But it's interesting that Balaram certainly doesn't give any indication that in any way he's human because he emanates Seshanag from his mouth and then rides away on him. So.
Yeah.
There's places in Gujarat where all those leelas happened, and where
It's called Prabhashishtha Kshetra.
where Lord Balaram takes the form of a serpent. And, he sends the serpent. He jumps on the back. That place is very high above everything. It's in Gujarat. I think.
Prabhashishtha.
Yeah, and we visited there on the library party, and you have to take. It's kind of like a barren place, and then it just has like and then overlooking the river is right below. So you could see, well, this is where, I think it's near Dwarka.
Does the story of Jagannath with the wood have anything to do with that part of Krishna's Leela? Because I can't remember where the wood came from that floated all the way to Jagannath Puri's side and then, was sculptured by Vishwakarma. But where did that wood originate? The original deity? Did that have something to do with
It came in the dream of the king. The tree lots of wood would be floating in the river, and you should just take that tree off.
But isn't there a story where how Krishna assumed that form or something, or where the wood came from?
No.
There is a story about it, but that is Tamal Krishna and Bhakti Charu wrote a play about it. So it's called Jagannath Natikam.
Yeah, that book that Tamal translated.
It was both, and then Maharaj. It was one of the first books that Bhakti Charu translated from Sanskrit because he was supposed to translate all the Prabhupada's books into Bengali. So they were kind of practicing on. That was the first book that they did, and they did that right. I think they were working on it as Srila Prabhupada was alive. Bhakti was translating it while Srila Prabhupada was
I
still
don't
alive.
think we even have a copy anymore. It's a real nice book.
John, I think it's called Jagannath Natikam.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Astika.
Can I say something?
Anything?
Yeah.
If
Yes.
you see, what's the argument here? Like people will say, well, Krishna also left because like everybody else, he got shot by the arrow and blah, blah, blah. Is that what we are talking about? Yeah. If you see the similarity, look and see how Lord Buddha left his body. From food, a cobbler or somebody gave him poison or something. He gave him meat. If you look up, it will tell you.
Which Buddha was that?
This is Buddha also, some cobbler gave him some food, but it was a meat. Some argument is like, why did he even eat it? He's a vegetarian. But he was 89 or 90 something years old. He probably didn't even know what this guy was doing.
There is a discussion of two different Buddhas. We are not talking about the
Buddha.
Buddha.
That if you see all the Buddha and also
Yeah, that's the Nepali Buddha.
yeah. I don't know how the regular Buddha does, but this is what it will tell you if you look up on that. And then same thing with Jesus Christ. He also was crucified. And same thing with Allah. What happened to him? He just disappeared in water.
Not Allah, Muhammad.
Muhammad, sorry. Yeah. So all of them, all the people, the incarnation, did not die out of natural death.
Here's one, I found one, but it doesn't say anything about for the atheist, so there must be another reference somewhere.
What's the reference?
This is in Srimad Bhagavatam, if I turn it this way, let's see, Canto 1, Chapter 14, verse 8.
1:14:8.
Yes, oh no, it's jumping.
Unstable.
What is it? I hate when my phone does this. Okay.
You want to use this one?
It's been a long time ago. I got the letter so huge here. Okay. 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 The Virat Rupa exhibited on the battlefield of Kurukshetra is the material conception of his form. Therefore, it should be understood that when Lord Krishna was apparently killed by the bow and arrow of the hunter, the Lord left his so-called material body in the material world. The Lord is Kaivalya. For him there is no difference between matter and spirit because everything is created for him. Therefore, his quitting one sort of body or accepting another does not mean he is like the ordinary living being. So there it is in this 1:14:8, and there's another place where it says something about he did for the demons so that they would, be able to stay demons if they wanted to. They would have a body. I think there's mention of where the body, somewhere is mention of where the body is buried or something. So he left a body, but he didn't like we do. He just left his material. The material aspect can stay here. That's okay. The rest of it is. But it is not like us because his material body is not different from him. It's only just the whole material world is his body. So I might as well leave a form here. It doesn't matter. And he really didn't leave it. He's not like us. But anyway, that's one place it says. It doesn't say anything about leaving the body behind in the actual account of the Javala hunter like that and how he ascended. It doesn't say it there.
There's a whole lot about the ascension though in that chapter.
Yeah.
How Krishna is going up and all the
Yeah.
devas are praising
Yes.
him, and that's really beautiful.
There are all these slightly different versions in the Mahabharata and Bhagavatam, and all this Pandavas leaving the...
But that's what we're talking about. It's all Bhagavatam.
Srimad Bhagavatam Gita.
Pandavas go to Helish
That's
and
got
ask about
so
his
much mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that Gopi Purandadana helped translate.
Yeah,
But I've never read it. I've never heard about it.
He was saying something I didn't catch.
Yeah, Pandavas, according to Mahabharata, they go to hellish planets.
Oh yeah,
Then
there's
they go
those
to
differences, yeah. But these differences are both in the Bhagavatam. So they're
Bhagavatam
not actual
versus
differences.
Mahabharata.
Huh?
Bhagavatam versus Mahabharata. They're slightly
No,
different.
it's not Bhagavatam versus Mahabharata. It's first canto versus... What canto is it when he leaves? 10th, 11th, I think. Whatever canto that is, it's all Bhagavatam. This has nothing to do with Mahabharata.
Which one?
The comparison, we're talking about whether Krishna left behind a material body or not.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Pandavas leaving. So I'm saying there is
Pandava,
always
yeah, that's
slightly
different.
different versions, the Mahabharata and Bhagavatam.
Yes,
That's why
yes,
there is
but that's got nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
This is all with this discussion of how Krishna left, whether he left a visible body behind or not. It's all, both apparent sides of the issue. Both stories are in the same Bhagavatam, and so we can understand they're both true. They're just telling different details of the same story. Anybody else? Sorry, but I didn't want to miss. Picked up before. I didn't want to miss what he was saying. So it's okay.
I'll see you in the afternoon, all right? I had to go someplace this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. Krishna, bless the Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you.